A visitor? Come in. Hello there. Can I help you? It's not often I get visitors out here, especially not this late into the evening. You're a brave one, coming this deep in the forest past sunset. The one and only. I am Linnea Edelford, the most powerful witch of the forest. The only witch of this forest, but don't let that deceive you. What's your name? Well, it's nice to meet you. But how can I help you? You don't look like someone who's gotten lost in the forest and just happened to stumble across my cabin. You seem a bit shy, but sure, I offer my magic as a service. Not many from your town would take me up on it. They seem to have their suspicions about me, a lone witch deep in the forest. If you told anyone that you were coming to see me or asked anyone for directions, then I'm sure you heard the rumors of a dark and evil witch who lures her victims out into the forest, far from the town where they won't be heard. But no, I'm just a girl who likes the quiet and independence of living in the forest. I grow, gather, hunt my own food, and while away my days relaxing and studying magic, and helping out the occasional traveler who comes to visit. But before we get too engrossed in whatever magic you wish to ask of me, are you in any particular hurry this evening? Perfect. Then would you join me for some tea? I also have some fresh apple bread as well as some lemon tarts. I'm sure you're tired from walking all this way, so let's take a break, enjoy some delicious treats, and we can discuss whatever it is that brought you here. Is that okay? Nonsense. If you're uncomfortable with it, then that's one thing, but it's been probably about a year and a half since anyone has come by. So, if you're willing, I certainly won't turn down the company. What do you say? Perfect. Then come with me into the back room, though be careful not to bump anything. Well, when you live this far into the forest, expecting regular visitors would be a bit of a futile exercise, even without the rumors. But I don't really mind, I guess. It's quiet out here, and I appreciate that. Go ahead and take a seat on one of the sofas. They're super comfy. That's one of the magics that I'm most proud of, but let's see. Let's get that fire going. I'm a witch, remember? I do know how to light a fire the normal, non-magical way as well, which has come in handy the 2 or 3 times over the years where I've exhausted all my mana, but I'm not that great at it. Doing it with magic is way easier for me. But either way, that should be nice and warm and cozy, and it'll get the water boiling. Just wait here and I'll go grab the food, okay? I see you found Maya. Did she come over to you like that? Well, she seems pretty comfortable. She must really like you. I'm a bit surprised. Not that you're a bad person or that she shouldn't like you, of course. I didn't mean it like that. I meant it more as... she's only a couple of years old, and both the other times that someone has come by since I've had her, she really didn't like having new people here. She got really skittish and avoided them, even avoided me, and mostly just hid in one of the closets for the rest of the day, even part of the next day, I think. But she really seems to like you. All curled up in your lap immediately, almost no hesitation. She can be pretty affectionate like this, yeah. But it's also kind of hit or miss, you know? Either way, she seems to want you to pet her, so aren't you lucky? Anyway, here you go. A few different teas to choose from. Pick whichever one you like. And some treats. Go on, no need to be shy. Try them. I'm glad that I made these lemon tarts. It's been quite a while, but... the perfect mix of sour and sweet. It pairs so nicely with this tea. There you go. What do you think? How is it? I'm glad. It's hard to get lemons out here in the middle of the forest, so we have to make do, but... Well, with a greenhouse and a bit of magic, you'd be surprised by what you can grow. And there's also the magic of making things taste like other things, but that's a little bit trickier. So, since I doubt you came all this way into the forest for some lemon tarts, as delicious as they might be, what did bring you out here? What magic would you like me to perform for you? I can't do whatever it is if you won't tell me. I'm pretty good at magic, but mind reading is beyond the scope of anything I've ever learned. It's theoretically possible, at least in some particular contexts and manifestations, but outside of some specific sorts of laboratory tests, I don't know of any examples of it being done. So... Well, embarrassing or not, I can't do it if I don't know what it is. And given that you came all the way to ask it of me, I suspect it's something you'd actually quite like me to do. Not many brave the forest and the rumors of the evil witch for a mere idle whim. Though, if you should decide that, in fact, you do not wish to tell me, then that's also perfectly alright. Just when, if you're ready. A cat? You wish to become a cat? That's certainly not what I was expecting. I'm not judging you or anything. Cats are obviously wonderful creatures, just what I can guess from the entire magical corpus, transfiguration isn't generally what first comes to mind. Particularly in the context of ordinary folk hiring a witch, the most common desires are probably health, love, wealth, or success, which is hard for us to do much about, and beauty, but usually in a more limited way than full cross-species transmutation, you know? So I was expecting something more like a love potion or a medicine for an otherwise incurable disease or injury. You assume too far and underestimate the Great Witch, Linnea. Of course I can do the transfiguration you desire. Of course. I see the surprise in your eyes that conveys that you thought this was a long shot, but yes, I can do that for you. However, before I do that, may I ask you a question? What makes you want to become a cat? I mean, that's not a trivial matter to undertake, and I'd hate for you to do something drastic on something of a whim. Oh, well, I suppose that's understandable. Wait here a moment. I'll need to consult one of my spell books to ensure I perform the magic correctly. Would hate to accidentally turn you into a squirrel. Or worse. All right. Now, let's see. This is sort of the de facto authority on most transfigurations, so it should be in here somewhere. Yeah, both inanimate and animate transfigurations, though you can't really mix them without a lot of careful planning and intricate soul manipulation, which obviously comes with great risks. Inanimate to inanimate is the easiest, since it doesn't need to concern itself with that. Then animate, which does have some soul manipulations, but it's pretty manageable for a skilled witch. Of course I'm a skilled witch. I told you, I'm the most powerful witch in this forest. That's true. There's not any competition for that title. But as some consolation, I am certified under the Compact of Mages as W2M3, meaning that I passed the second class Witchcraft exam and the third class General Magecraft exam. Most mages are 4th or 5th class, and I finished top rank for this region amongst those taking the second class Witchcraft exam. Thanks. Honestly, it's most of the fact that I've studied magic since, well, basically as long as I can remember. So, with a couple decades of experience, I'd like to think you're in good hands. Aha, found it. Okay. First step is determine your, well, the book calls it aptitude, but that's an outdated perspective. It's more correct to call it affinity. It's basically your sensitivity to magic, especially this kind of magic, and we'll use that to calibrate the transfiguration. If you've a high affinity, then it'd be easier to accidentally overdo it, and if you've a low affinity, then it'd be easy to only partially transfigure you. Neither of which would be good. But it is easy to test for, and easy to calibrate and compensate for. Yeah. What I'm going to do is basically just channel some mana through your body and observe how it flows. How quickly or smoothly, how much resistance there is, whether there are any irregularities, that sort of thing. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea. You'll be able to feel it, yeah, though it shouldn't be unpleasant. In fact, if you've a high affinity, it'll likely feel really warm and gentle, that sort of warmth you might feel in your stomach or your chest after drinking warm tea or something. If you have a low affinity, honestly, it probably won't feel like very much at all. Maybe just a little bit of pushing or prodding. Yeah, you should be just fine. Do I have your consent to go forward with this? Alright, then stand up for me. Yes, just like that. And let me take your hands, nice and gentle. It's a lot easier to channel mana through direct skin-to-skin contact. As I said, it shouldn't be an issue, but if this ends up being painful or otherwise unpleasant for any reason, just say something or squeeze my hands and I'll stop, okay? Any questions before I start? Alright, then 3, 2, 1... How does it feel? Good. And now? I see. Honestly, you have a really high magical affinity. I don't have the means to determine it precisely. There are tools for that, but I don't have them. But it seems higher than many 4th or 5th class mages. And for someone with no magical training, that's very high. In fact, I think it's high enough for me to do a more sophisticated transfiguration for you than you'd originally asked for. Well, you said you wanted to become a cat, right? I'm pretty sure I know which of these you meant, but I was going to ask as clarification whether you meant an actual full-blooded cat like Maya here, or a cat-human hybrid, a Neko, which would leave you mostly humanoid and able to speak, but shorter and with feline traits. Some fur, claws, sharper teeth, cat ears, a tail, likely some behavioral traits like purring, etc. That's what I figured, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But most people would choose the second one, and they're different invocations, which is why I needed to ask. But the thing is, I think your affinity is high enough that I can do both for you. Well, I think I can give you both forms and the ability to switch between them freely. I wouldn't actually have been able to do a full cat form and a full human form because of the necessary soul manipulations, but I suspect that might not be an issue for you. From my perspective, that seems strictly an improvement to being locked just the full cat form, but what do you think? So what we would do is attune your soul to both of those forms, making it simple to switch between them. You might think of it as two valleys in a mountain range. They're sort of low points that are easy to slide into. And you have enough magical affinity that you'd basically be able to cast a spell to switch forms. That's not exactly right, but it's sort of close. Either way, you'll be able to reflexively and instinctively do it, even without practice. As I said, you'll be able to switch freely between them, but there are some limitations. Well, I'll be able to attune your soul, and thus by extension your physical body, but I can't attune anything outside of that. Well, the most poignant example is that your clothes are not part of the transformation, so changing from the Neko form to the full cat form will make for a cat and a pile of clothes on the floor, and switching the other way will result in a Neko without any clothes. So, while you can change freely, it's probably best to exercise some care in deciding when and where to do so. It is a bit unfortunate and inconvenient, but in this context, there's not really anything feasible to mitigate that. But since you were only originally asking for the full cat form anyway, it might not be too much of an issue for you. Yeah, Neko to cat is fine, except that you end up with your clothes in a pile that would be hard to do something with as a cat. But yeah, the other direction is more the issue. Yeah? That's what you want me to do? Sure. Let me just double check exactly how this needs to work. All right. Yeah. We're going to need to make a potion for you to drink, and I'll need to perform a couple of invocations. Not trivial, but nothing too crazy. It looks like I even already have the potion ingredients on hand, so that's incredibly convenient. Do you want to do this now? Not at all. I don't mind. It sounds kind of fun. This is not technically the point of no return, but just... if you had any lingering hesitations, or if there were things you needed to attend to beforehand, now would be a good time. Alright. Then let's start making this potion. Come with me into my atelier. Just be careful not to touch anything unless I tell you. here we are. This cauldron is where I make my various potions, and that more open space on that side of the room is where I perform a lot of my spell work, as well as some reading and studying, as I have a desk over there. But for now, some potions can take a while, a few hours, a few days, or even longer, but this one will actually only take a couple of minutes. Really not too bad. It is. The time it takes for a potion is rooted in a couple of different factors, but the most influential one is the affinity or attunement of the different ingredients, as that affects how quickly they can harmonize and facilitate their mana transfer, as well as complete their ordinary chemical reactions as well. It's sort of how sodium metal will violently explode in water, but baking soda and vinegar react in a much more controlled manner. In practice, most potions only take 3 to 10 minutes. It's just that the long, slow ones are more famous. Or, well, infamous, as the case may be. Boring, usually. A couple have more intricate developments, but most of them are set up the solution and then wait a long time. Yeah, though that's not the case here. Alright. I was making a few potions earlier this evening, so the cauldron is already prepared. So we're just going to go ahead and start putting in our ingredients. In addition to the general cauldron base, which is water plus a handful of catalysts that we can use for almost all potions and the like, this potion in particular requires some catnip, part of a tiger-striped pufferfish. We'll be using these dried scales, this powder, and it really does look like glitter, doesn't it? In a way, I guess that's true, but this powder, called sparkling powder, though colloquially also known as shiny powder, is a special type of magical catalyst that's useful in a lot of high-level potions. And the last ingredient we'll need is, it's what we call sanguine clay. Yeah. I have this magical clay prepared as a base, but we'll need just a couple drops of your blood to add to it. It's set up to be able to absorb that, and it will help attune the potion to you. And it will also act as a core for my later invocation to bind to. Is that okay? Alright, let's go ahead and do that first then, if that's okay? Here, you can hold the clay with one hand. I have this little needle thing, I always forget its proper name, that I'll use. And yes, it has been sanitized. When you're ready, take a deep breath, and I'll give your ring finger on this hand a little prick. It'll hurt a little bit, but it'll just be that one time. You can let the clay absorb some of the blood, and I also have a bandage for you. Is that okay? Then, whenever you're ready... There you go. You okay? God, I hate having to do that, but that's that part over. As I said, just put a couple drops worth of blood on the clay and... Here, I'll trade you. Bandage for clay. Alright, this can go in here now. What is it? Honestly, I don't really know what sort of flavor the potion will have, but let's see. Catnip is kind of mint-like, so that's probably going to be the dominant flavor, if I had to guess. It probably won't be the best tasting thing you've ever had, but I suspect it'll be alright. Okay. While the clay is sort of stewing in the cauldron, I'm going to go ahead and prep the other ingredients. The recipe is scaled for 100 grams of clay, but mine are prepped to 250 grams, so 45 grams of catnip becomes 90 plus 22.5, which is 112.5. 15 grams of the pufferfish becomes 30 plus 7.5, or 37.5. And 40 grams of sparkling powder becomes 80 plus 20, or 100. No, it'll be fine. Scaling a recipe up or down like that, within reason anyway, doesn't really have too much effect aside from maybe ending up with a bit more or a bit less of your potion. It's only when you scale down really far that you start to interfere with the ingredients' ability to harmonize, and scaling up too far can interfere with how they flow and can also overwhelm the base catalysts. But you'd have to scale up or down by a factor of at least 10 to 15 to start running into that. Scaling by 2.5 is fine. No, not at all. In theory, I could have used only 2/5 of the clay and kept the original amounts instead, but I have had some issues with that. Specifically, the clay doesn't do well when it gets split up. Well, it has to do with the way that the clay is made. In a very loose sense, you could think of it as alive, and so cutting it like that would be a pretty major injury, which is going to affect how it interacts with the other ingredients. It could theoretically be avoided by taking some extra precautions when making it, but that makes it a lot more work to make, and I just don't see the point when you can just add more of the other ingredients to compensate. Oh, that's a clever question. I could just make them smaller, but joining them has the same sort of problem of reduced efficacy, even if it's not as extreme. And for me, the general use case for the magical clay requires 250 grams, so it doesn't make sense for me to optimize for the less than 1% of the time I need something else, you know? As much as there's magic involved, witchcraft is also very much a science, yeah. And that means accounting for a lot of different factors as you practice it. No, not really, though that's also a good question. Witchcraft is, among some other things, primarily a mix of pure magic and chemistry, whereas magecraft is primarily a mix of pure magic and physics, though it's a fair bit more complicated than that, and pure magic is also a technical term. But witchcraft and magecraft, along with a handful of others, are usually taught in a magical sciences department at magic academies. Exactly. Then there's also plenty of overlap, too. Anyway, all of the ingredients are in, so for now it's just a matter of stirring and waiting for them all to harmonize. That'll only take a couple moments, so just a bit more patience, kitten. I'm going to prepare for the necessary invocations as well. Yeah, that's fine. Feel free to look around. Just, as I said earlier, be careful not to touch anything. I have a few ingredients in here that can be dangerous if you're not careful, and others that are very carefully arranged. Good. Okay, the potion should be done now. Yeah, let me get it out of the cauldron and into a glass for you to drink. Here you go. But before you drink that, this is the point of no return. Once you drink that, even if I don't perform the invocations, there's no going back. And actually, it'll be far worse if I don't perform the invocations, because you'll end up with things in weird in-between states, which would definitely have some negative consequences. My point is, I'm not trying to scare you or even dissuade you. I just want to make sure. Are you sure that you want this? Very well then. You may drink the potion. How is it? That's fair. I'm glad it wasn't too bad, though. It'll take a little bit of time to take effect, though my invocations will mostly take care of that, but you probably won't feel much until then, maybe a little bit here and there, so don't worry, it'll do its thing. Now, may I begin the invocation? Well, from your perspective, it won't involve much at all. I'm going to hold your hands again so that I can more easily conduct mana through you, and I'll cast a few spells that'll take care of orchestrating the transformation. Okay? Then your hands, please. Alright. This will probably feel mostly the same as when I tested your affinity earlier, but a little bit different as the transformation begins to take hold. I'll be directing you into the hybrid Neko form first, partially because it'll be a smaller transformation, so it'll give you a less extreme change to experience for the first time. Okay? Ready? And just as the soul is the manifestation of the self, what defines us as ourselves, yet do we change as we grow. And just as we grow outside of our control by factors as age or circumstance, yet do we change also by intention. And just as we are delicate in our balance, yet are we resilient and adaptable. The one before me, illuminated in mana, bears a desire and intention to change, to grow, into a true self yet unfound in the current. As is contained in the power of the soul, as aided and directed by our magic, this change shall transpire. Behold. There you go. You're now in your Neko form. How do you feel? That's understandable. You are inhabiting a fairly different body than you were just a few seconds ago. We do need to hurry and perform the second invocation as well, the one that'll grant you the full cat form. But do you first wish to look in the mirror? Alright, you probably saw it in your momentary exploration of the atelier earlier, but there's a mirror in that corner over there. Shall we? Oh, be careful. You're shorter now, so your pants are too long. Let me roll them up a bit so you're less likely to trip over them. There, that should be better. What do you think? Yes, that's you. I know it's probably a bit weird to see yourself like that. 1.5 meters tall, maybe even a bit less. These cute cat ears. It's good to know that you can feel them properly. That sounds like a real mule, so... Well, if that's your natural response in this form, then it seems like it worked pretty well. What about your tail? It's probably caught in your pants, but can you pull it out? There you go. That looks nice and soft. Can you move it? Does it feel okay? Good, good. Though, yeah, it'll probably take a bit of time to get used to all of the changes. Are you ready for the second part? The part where you become a full-fledged cat? Well, you'll retain your mind and your soul, just in a cat's body and with some of the associated instincts. Alright, then come back over to the cauldron with me. Yeah, you'll need to drink just a little bit more, about half of that first amount, which is obviously still in your system as well, but to manifest 2 separate forms, well, you simply need a bit of a higher dose than to manifest just one, so... Here you go. Drink up. Alright, and same as before, I'll take your hands and pass mana through you for the second invocation. Is that okay? As I hinted at earlier, it should definitely feel similar, though because this is a more drastic transformation, it'll likely feel a bit more intense. Though again, while it might be a little bit unpleasant, it shouldn't be painful per se, and when you switch between the 2 forms later, that won't be an issue. A better analogy than what I gave you earlier would be that this is sort of like us forming molds for the shape of your soul, but later, once the molds have been formed, it's a lot easier, and actually quite straightforward, to merely adopt the form of the mold. Then, are you ready? Then, and just as the soul is the manifestation of the self, what defines us as ourselves, yet do we change as we grow. And just as we grow outside of our control by factors as age or circumstance, yet do we change also by intention. And just as we are delicate in our balance, yet are we resilient and adaptable. The one before me, illuminated in mana, bears a desire and intention to change, to grow, into a true self not fully contained in the current. As is contained in the power of the soul, as aided and directed by our magic, this change to uncover a co-equal self, a co-equal mold held and retained by concurrent desire and intention, shall transpire. Behold. Aren't you a cute little kitty like that? And a cute meow you have. It looks like you can't speak normally, huh? I guess that makes sense. Do you feel okay? That's good. Do you mind if I pick you up so we can go over and you can look in the mirror? Yeah, that's okay. I know that probably seems a bit strange. You can obviously go over there on your own. I'm just worried that... Yeah, just like that. I was worried you wouldn't be able to see since the mirror doesn't come down far enough. Would you like me to pick you up so you can see, or would you like me to bring my desk chair over so you can stand on it? Yes, I can pick you up. Nice and gentle, I promise. Alright, there you go. Just a witch holding a little kitty. Yeah, do you like this? That's good. I'm glad you like that. Aw, you're so soft, nuzzling against my neck like that. Is this your way of saying thank you? You're very welcome. I do enjoy the solitary peace and quiet of my life here in the forest, but I also enjoy being able to use my magic to help others. Especially when it's interesting magic that I have little or no excuse to practice otherwise. It's been at least a few years since I've done any soul manipulation magic, and this is the first time I've been able to do a 2-form transformation. So, thank you, I suppose. How do you feel? Does everything feel okay? Can you move everything? I know you were walking just fine a moment ago, and obviously your meowing seems fine. You seem to hear and understand me, but how about your ears and tail? All 4 paws? Are you sore or numb anywhere? Good. It might be a good idea to see a vet just in case, though, logistically. But it is definitely reassuring that you feel okay, on top of what I can tell. I imagine the pets and ear scratches feel even better like this. I'm going to take those purrs as a yes. There is one other important thing to test, and then one other thing at the moment that I'm just really curious about. Okay? Alright. The first of those is making sure that you can properly transition between the two forms at will. Sure, since your original request was to become a cat, then I can imagine you not being particularly torn up if you were stuck in this form. That said, because of the fact that your soul should be attuned to the two forms, it would actually be pretty bad if you couldn't switch, even if you didn't want to. It'd be a bit like if your knee hurt and you decided it wasn't anything of an issue because you can walk well enough and you don't care to run a marathon. Fair enough? Alright, then I'm gonna set you down and turn around. Your clothes are over there, remember? So, I'm gonna set you down, turn around, and I just want you to change back and forth a couple times. Look in the mirror and make sure that everything that's supposed to change does, and that everything feels okay. Can you do that for me? Okay. There you go. And now you have the chair you can climb onto to see. I'm going to turn around now, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead. And just let me know when you're done, okay? Everything is okay, I take it? Good. And I see you ended up in your cat form, Though I wonder how much of that is the fact that your clothes no longer fit. Would you like me to do something about that? Well, I don't know if I can shrink them enough for them to properly fit your Neko form, but I can at least make them a little bit smaller if you'd like. No? You don't seem particularly interested one way or the other. Perhaps we can figure that out later. On that note, though, if I may ask, what now? What do you intend to do now that you're a cat or a Neko? I can't imagine that the townsfolk where you're from would be particularly keen on what we've done. Not that I'm saying it was a bad idea or that we shouldn't have done it, but I'm curious. What do you do from here? It's hard to understand your meowing. Oh, is your plan just to live as an ordinary house cat back in your town? Somehow I feel like I ought not be surprised by that. Do you already have some place in mind? A family member, friend, acquaintance who's looking to take in a cat? No? Just planning to be a stray and hope for the best? That seems at least a bit risky and all but guaranteed to be pretty unpleasant in the short term, no? I suppose you'd have come to terms with that prospect already if you went to these lengths to make it happen. That, or you were so desperate in your aims that you didn't care. Hey, how about this? What if you were to stay here? Well, I'm certainly not going to have an issue with what we've done, so you'd be safe here. And besides, I like cats. You could be my little familiar. To be fair, it's not an entirely selfless offer. I've been thinking about taking on an apprentice for some time, ever since one of my mage friends suggested it to me probably almost a year ago now, so he'd be helping me with my magic. We already established via your affinity that you've the potential for it. Plus, there aren't many of your kind as you are now, two-form creatures, and there's very little overlap between those who have the potential, mages for example, and those who have the desire, as I'm sure you well understand. So, I have an interest in keeping an eye on you for research purposes, and to the earlier point, that's even more true if you develop your magic. What relevant differences do you have between your two forms? Is one of them, for one reason or another, better attuned to the flow of magic? What sort of other effects are there for you in other regards? So many interesting questions. In addition, I must also admit that on a personal level, even from the mere hour or so since we have met, I have found you particularly pleasant and intriguing, and I would like to get to know you better. Even as I value my relatively solitary existence out here, it does sometimes get rather lonely, and to have someone so catch my eye is a chance I would loathe to squander without so much as offering. Though I also wish to respect your own decision, and if you believe that you would rather something else, then by all means pursue that. I am but a humble witch who lives in the forest, and you owe me no duty, loyalty, or recompense. However, given the late hour, I will insist that you rest here tonight, as even with a feline's eyes, I don't feel especially comfortable with you traveling through the forest with nothing but the crescent moon to guide your way. And then you can make your decision tomorrow, after you've also had an opportunity to sleep on it. Is that okay? You're welcome. Now, I'm someone who tends to go to sleep at least relatively early, so I would normally be getting ready for bed soon anyway. And as you're not used to using magic, I'm sure the transformations have taken their toll on you, even as excited as you might be about them, so come with me and I'll show you around a bit more. As you've likely gathered, this cabin is comfortable, but not especially large, so you've already seen a fair bit of it by virtue of walking between the front door and the back room where we had our tea and treats and my atelier here. But if you come down this hallway, in addition to the front room, which is great for relaxing, there's also this room, which is a combination between a study and a lounge. And on this side of the hallway is the washroom and the bedroom. You might have to do some diplomacy with Maya, but if you'd rather the litter box, then that's in the corner of the back room, I suppose. As I live by myself, I've only this one bed, though it's plenty large for us to share it, with you in either that or your Neko form. I don't snore, though I can be a bit cuddly in my sleep. I'm always curled up with a plushie. But if you're more comfortable, there are a few chairs or sofas around that you could sleep on. And if you decide to stay long term, then we can figure out a permanent solution. Any of those options, or a bed for you. Again, whatever you'd be most comfortable with. The bed, Sure, though Maya may come in here too. Sometimes she sleeps in here, sometimes she doesn't, so. I'm going to put your clothes on the dresser over here as well as a set of my pajamas. They're also going to be too big, but if you decide you want to change into your Neko form in the middle of the night and want them, you're welcome to wear them. You're welcome. Do you need anything else before bed? Water? Anything? Alright. I'm going to use the washroom and change into my pajamas then real quick, okay? Okay. Time to get nice and comfortable. And sleep well. We can figure out things tomorrow. Good night, little kitty.